And now, to cap off the show, based on the Marvel Comics series, an unarmed Kung Fu master is forced to confront his past while coming into conflict with the nefarious Ten Rings organization. And of course, we are talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now, one thing I just have to say before we really dive into this is that a lot of people just when they talk about the movie, they just say Shang-Chi. No, I have to say Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings because that's just a fucking awesome title. I just love that title for some reason. It's just an awesome title. And of course, the film stars Simu, Leung, and Awkwafina. And one of the things the big thing that I really appreciated about this film is that it felt like a Marvel Cinematic Universe film, but not like a Marvel Cinematic Universe film at the same time. And I really, really appreciated that.
Definitely. Like, for me, I love martial arts. I love Asian mythology and, but mixture of Chinese, Japanese, really a mixture of a lot of Asian mythologies as well. So when I heard that this was coming out, at first I was like, eh. But then when I saw that first trailer, that sold it for me. Martial arts looked fire. Fight choreography looked fire. They actually didn't cut too much. And I'm talking about just a trailer right now. I'm not even talking about the movie yet.
Yeah.
So I was automatically sold. Then my expectations were high, right? Then I've been hearing people saying they did some anime Dragon Ball Z shit. I'm like, okay, now my expectations are super high. I went in, I walked out super satisfied. I really did. I really liked this movie. I had a good time all the way through. And I also want to mention one thing, because I do have a problem with the Marvel MCU movies on occasion, and that's the comedy. To me, in this movie, the comedy actually felt right, and actually, in my opinion, I thought paced very well to the point where all the comedic jokes hit. Almost every single one landed for me, and I was amazed, mainly because
they didn't feel shoehorned in there.
It didn't, and I was worried about Awkwafina because she's a comedian, and that's what she does. But they really, it really felt as if at certain points where it looked like she might have gone, Awkwafina style, they cut and went straight to something else, and I very much appreciated that. But yeah, overall, I highly recommend this movie. Action, and I think I texted you this too. I'm going to say this right now. This is probably some of the best fight scenes and fight choreography I've seen in an MCU film.
Yep, same here. Same exact boat as you. That's honestly, there's a lot that this movie definitely has going for it. Certain things that I could point out that I could complain about, honestly, but there's a lot that this movie has going for it. The biggest thing that this film has going for it are the action sequences. The fight scenes are excellent.
Yeah.
And again, touching on your point too, when you were talking about just the trailer, how it didn't seem like they cut too much. They really didn't cut too much. Like, that camera is moving with them. Everything feels so fluid. The editing between each of those, cuts is just absolutely, it's terrific. It's just absolutely terrific. Like, this is the best, honestly, to my memory, this is the best action that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has ever given us.
I definitely agree with that. Because to me, Winter Soldier is like one of my favorite MCU films. And I think, to me, Winter Soldier had like the best action. To me, this surpassed that. Like, it really did. Because just almost on... It was really a mixture of just the camera angles and just the action sequences alone, and how much they held into the choreography and let us be in that fight instead of being a bunch of shaky all the time. And that was also my issue with Winter Soldier and Civil War when it came to their action sequences. It felt as if it was a lot of camera shake, and sometimes for no reason. Even when they were trying to be visceral and impactful. Right, but for this, no, they were visceral and impactful, and they still showed the choreography, the punches landing, the kicks, everything, and I very much enjoyed that. Now, going from the actions...
And the camera was smooth, too.
Oh, very smooth. Oh, oh my god, I was drooling when I saw this movie. I was drooling.
You're in public, Darius. Please, Darius.
I don't care. But yeah, in going from there, I also want to touch upon, really... the actors and some surprises as well. Just overall, I have to say, for Tony Leung Mandarin, his Mandarin was absolutely fantastic.
No, was he the... So, I'm sorry, he was... So he was the Mandarin.
He was the Mandarin, but they didn't explicitly call him the Mandarin.
Okay, I was just saying.
His name is Wen Wu.
I remember them calling him.
Yeah, this is a very different Mandarin from the comics, but I really like the changes they made to him and to the Ten Rings to the point where I was like, I'm okay with it. I really dug it. It's funny because during this movie, I felt more for him than the main actor, than the main character, to be honest.
Really?
I did, because it's like, to me, they really delve a lot into the history of him, which is understandable because you have to know a bit more about him to understand Shang-Chi and his point of view. But towards the end and everything, to me, it's just really wrapped up nicely for him and his journey, and I really appreciated that.
Yep.
The Ten Rings, at first I was worried about how they were going to do it. It didn't seem like it was from the comics, but I'm fine with it, mainly because of the choreography they even pulled off with those Ten Rings in combat. So I was like, you know what, this is dope. I'm sold. I'm good.
Going back to, I guess, what I now realize is the Mandarin, they definitely made him very sympathetic, and I think diving into his backstory, how he falls in love and meets his wife, and, like, I guess just, like, having, like, the inserts of, like, them and their family, like, they really give him a lot more meat, which makes him, in terms of villains, like, among the standouts in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I wasn't expecting to like the villain as much as I thought as much as I did, because, again, Marvel seems to have a pretty spotty record when it comes to villains. Like, you have some great ones that stand out, but you have a lot more that really just, like, don't land or just really just don't stand out. But again, like, that goes into the whole theme of, like, everything with the characters. Like, I think characters across the board are pretty strong. Like, I've really was invested in Shang-Chi. Everything that he had going for him, everything that he had going behind him, and just, like, all of his conflicts. Because you can see, like, as far as, like, the man, because, like, he's struggling to embrace everything that's in him, whether it's the darkness from his father and the light from his mom. And that conflict is really evident throughout the film. It's just like, how do you fully embrace or really decide between two different parts of yourself that come from people that have such a strong connection to you?
Yeah, and not only
I really liked what they did with that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, they did a really good job, and not just. I also want to touch upon more of that, but also expectations too. His father kind of had a certain expectation for him to be by his side, take upon the mantle, that sort of thing. Where you have Simu Liu's character Shang-Chi, basically, it's like he's so conflicted with that, and I really liked his portrayal of really that internal struggle. And even the sister, too, hearing and seeing her struggles and everything, how she built an empire on her own. Like, you didn't even need to see the process. You saw the final result, and it is fantastic. And so, like I said, I really liked this movie. I really did.
This, honestly, this is really, really good. And again, like, this had enough to feel like a Marvel Cinematic Universe without feeling like just another Marvel Cinematic Universe. Again, performances across the board are pretty strong. I really liked Simu Liu. I really liked Awkwafina. I thought not only the performances were decent, I thought the chemistry that everybody had with each other was even better.
Yeah, I definitely felt that, especially between Simu Liu's character and Awkwafina, as well as Simu Liu's Shang-Chi and Wenwu. Like, I definitely felt like when they were in just the moments of the discussions between the family, and we hear and see them talking, not only do we see it, but you can feel it too. You can feel the almost hatred that Shang-Chi has for his father, and as well as how the sister is kind of just like, I don't want to be in this room. Like, you can actually feel it as well. The music, absolutely. This is the one MCU movie I will give credit to, where I felt as if the score really stood out, in my opinion, compared to the other MCU films.
This and Black Panther, that's about it, really. And I guess just, like, the regular, like, Avengers movies too, because, like, you have that that theme, that Avengers theme. But, like, in terms of, like, a score across the board, like, yeah, the score for Shang-Chi was pretty strong, and again, it actually stood out. Again, not as much as films like Black Panther. Like, the music in that movie was terrific. But again, this movie had like enough music to be like, all right, I'm actually noticing it in certain sequences too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Highly recommend it. They've done some live action anime stuff. I'm just like, what in the world are they doing?
Well, here's the thing. Even if it's live action anime, right? Like, it didn't feel so much like it because I remember, here's the thing. This is a shout out to the Space Reapers review that we did a while ago and how much I hated that piece of garbage. You kept telling me, like, it's essentially live action anime. And I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, maybe I'm just not into live action anime. I'm not really much of an anime person to begin with. But if you're saying this is, Shang-Chi is, live action anime done right,
yes,
then I guess there's a way to do it, and then there's a way not to do it.
Yes, done right. I have to really specify that. Done right. It was really just how impactful some of these fight sequences, especially in the third act, just looked and felt that I was just enthralled and exhilarated that entire fight sequence. Almost everything. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I have to give a huge shout out to the fight coordinator on this. Whoever they were, fight choreographer, you did a freaking spectacular job, my man. You did. Like, this is some of the... like I said, thoroughly enjoyed this movie from beginning to end. Fight sequences and even the dramatic elements, everything hit for me, really. Almost everything hit for me. There were a few surprises that I was not too keen on and happy about. But how they pulled it off, I was just like, you know what? Whatever, it is funny. This person's in this for a comedic role, so you know what? I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I know. Here's the thing. I know, and again, without giving away too much, I know exactly who you're talking about. I'm like, oh, okay, he's in this movie? Really? I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, he's probably just going to be like, like a 2-second cameo. But no, he's actually in the movie for a decent amount. I'm like, okay, with what happened with this character in connection to, like, the idea of the Mandarin, I'm like, okay, like, him being here is actually fine. And again, he provided a lot of great comedic relief. Again, without giving away too much. But something else I want to ask you about. How did you feel about the visuals in the film? Because overall, I felt like they were nice to look at. It felt like a bit CGI heavy at certain points. Again, I know that's just the nature of, like, this kind of film. But sometimes I just felt like the CGI didn't look like as crisp as I'd expect a Marvel Cinematic Universe film. Maybe that's just maybe I'm just
yeah, okay. It didn't because as much as I love that bus fight sequence, there were certain things in there that actually took me out of the experience. And I was just like, oh, that just didn't look good. It just didn't look good. Towards the end. So there were some spotty ones, but at the same time, to me, it felt more like it was the art, the style, and the art direction they were going for, and not necessarily bad visual effects per se. But yeah, like there are definitely some visual effects that did not really look as clean and crisp as it should be. Not only, but this is a problem in the MCU I've seen in general, from Far From Home to Infinity War. To some other movies actually, but and you can tell, and to be honest, it's like I think really they have a certain time frame, they have to meet it, and they can't really touch upon it too much afterwards. So that's why it still looks the way it is. But did it throw me out completely? No, but it was obvious enough.
No. Definitely not.
To the point where within that couple seconds, I was a bit out of the experience. But then I was thrust back in because the action sequences were just fire.
Yeah, exactly. Like, again, this definitely doesn't take me out of the film overall. Because, again, this movie does have really just like a lot else going for it. Because, again, even in the aspects that it doesn't feel like a Marvel Cinematic Universe film, I feel like, again, the family drama just felt heavier and just was more impactful. There isn't as much connection to, like, other Marvel Cinematic Universe characters throughout the film. But the little connections that it does have, like, it felt welcome and it made sense and it didn't feel forced. So, again, like I said, this just feels enough like a Marvel Cinematic Universe film where it fits in with the rest of them, but it has enough going for it that it actually stands out. It has enough different about it that, like, okay, this doesn't feel like every other Marvel film that I've seen before. So, again, it has enough to stand on its own. It has enough to stand out. And overall, I definitely did enjoy this film. So again, for all you guys out there, what exactly did you think of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings? Again, just comment wherever it is that you can. We really want to hear exactly what it is that you're thinking about this film.